So welcome, friends.
Welcome, everybody.
Lovers, family, listeners all over the world. This is 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. And tonight you are given the extra special experience of having my co-host, Amy Nasir.
Well, thank you very much, Robert Nasir.
No relation.
Very happy to be here.
I mean, some relation.
Some relation.
Tonight we're testing the equipment, we're testing the format, we're testing you, the listening audience, to see if you are functioning properly as well.
Can you see us? Can you hear us?
The purpose of 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir is to share my unique perspective on living the good life. And I've been encouraged to do this for some time. Friends have been following the process, and today was the official launch day. But unfortunately, it turns out this stuff's complicated, like really complicated.
Take somebody from Mensa.
Yes. Yeah. Syndication and restream and multiple feeds and all of this stuff has turned out to be more challenging than expected. So it looks like I'm going to have to do a few of these test runs just to figure out how all this stuff is going to work. I've tried asking people who are already podcasting how they do it, and it seems like most people, once they figured it out, don't remember how they got it all to work. Or maybe I'm just asking the wrong questions. In any event, welcome to this special test preview of 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir. We're going to start off by recognizing that today is the 61st day of 2020, March 1st. That means it's just 19 days until spring. You also have 299 shopping days until Christmas. But what Amy really cares about is there are 244 days
till Halloween.
Till Halloween.
Thank you.
And also you have 187 days before GlowCon 8.
Yes.
So if you are interested in attending the Great Lakes Objectivists annual conference, it's time to start making plans.
All right.
Except we haven't made any plans yet. But it will happen, as it does every Labor Day weekend. Today is National Peanut Butter Lovers Day. And if you are a peanut butter lover, that means this is your day. Have some peanut butter. Make a sandwich. Have a Reese's cup. Do something that involves peanut butter.
I did that today. I made myself a peanut butter and jelly with strawberry.
That's because you are a peanut butter patriot. Or something.
Of peanut butter land.
Peanut butter and strawberry jam. It's a beautiful thing. It's also Justin Bieber's birthday. Happy birthday, Justin Bieber.
Oh.
Can you name a Justin Bieber song?
Hit Me Baby One More Time. Oh, no, actually, that was the girl.
We are such experts on contemporary music here. That's right. How are you doing, fellow kids? On this day in history, March 1st, Venera 3, a Soviet probe, launched from Kazakhstan and crashed into Venus in 1966.
Here it is, folks. And here's crashing.
It looked just like that. Crashing into the planet was not part of the mission. And this is your reminder then to go out and see Apollo 11.
Yes.
A recently produced 2019 documentary directed by Todd Douglas Miller, who went to film school with Amy at MPI Institute, Motion Picture Institute of Michigan.
I went to film school with him. Yeah, it's Apollo 11, The First Steps documentary.
An outstanding documentary, very well done.
Fantastic.
Includes some footage that was recently found again. So definitely worth seeing. Very exciting and gives you an idea just what is possible to people, to mankind.
It was visceral human achievement. That's what it is. And you should go see it on the big screen instead of streaming if you can. It's at the Henry Ford Giant Screen Experience right now until March 6th, and then it's going to probably be played later too. So
yes, a must-see, especially if you are, like me, a fan of Ayn Rand's article on Apollo 11 and the launch, and then her Ford Hall Forum talk, Apollo and Dionysus. also a must hear. I'll put notes to that online in the feeds. The word of the day is capitalism. And the definition of capitalism that we use on this show is capitalism is a social system based on the recognition of individual rights in which all property is privately owned. When we talk about capitalism, we're not talking about big business and lots of money and the things people do because they have economic power, which are trivial matters that are better answered by understanding what capitalism really is, which is political economic liberty.
That's right.
Today's theme and your takeaway for the show is eat, drink, and be merry. For tomorrow, by every indication, things look to be awesome. And so we approach today's episode with optimism. We go back in time 50 years, 1966, when life expectancy was only 56 years.
Wow.
By 2016, it was 72, up 29%. So for those of us who are 56 years old, or those of us who will be in 10 years, or some arbitrary number,
yeah, we
can expect to live another, I gotta do the math. I'm only gonna live another 16 years? 16 years are bought and paid for by human progress. Mm-hmm. So thank you, human progress. But are other things getting better? Infant mortality was 113 per 1,000 children not living to their first year, their first birthday. By 2016, it's down to 32 per 1,000, or mortality rates down 72%. The average income, these are United States figures, excuse me, these are United States figures. Income rose from $3,698 per person to $17,469 per person, or an increase of 372%. The average person's income. And yes, these numbers are adjusted for inflation. Food supplies, measured in calories, went from 2,300 to 2,800, or up 22%. Political economic freedom, education, civil rights, including women's rights, all improved in the last 50 years.
Yep.
Everything is getting better all the time, and the improvements are not trivial or marginal. The areas in which we've seen some decline stand out because they're so unusual, because we expect progress all the time. Mm-hmm. The last few years have seen a decline in life expectancy. Not a large one, but still for that to go down, that says something. And it's owing primarily to what they call deaths of despair, suicides and drug addiction, primarily opiates. But again, those stand out because everything else is getting better all the time. By 2030, it is expected that world poverty will be abolished. This doesn't take into account political situations. There will always be countries where poverty will be an issue because lack of freedom is an issue.
North Korea. Hopefully in 2013 there won't be a
2030.
2030, thank
yes.
you. Hopefully by then there won't be a dictator in North Korea, so hopefully.
Damn right. And you're not going to recognize the world in 2030. 10 years from now, things will be as mind-blowingly different and better as things are now compared to 2010. And it's undeniable. You
know, this has just been a very long continuation of the 1980s for me because, you had all sorts of horrible things happening in the 1970s, gas lines and, I don't know, just it was pretty bad. It was, people at war with each other in the cities. just rampant poverty. And then came the 80s, and then it just seems like it's just a continuation. It seems like the 50s, like every single decade in the 20th century was very distinct. Then came the 80s, then you had the 90s, then the aughts and the 10s, and here we are in the 20s, and it just seems like a continuation of progress, and it hasn't declined into something like the 70s, which is great.
Although, to be fair, the best music ever produced in pop rock was in the 1980s, and everything has gotten worse since then. As I say, there are some exceptions to the rule. But in general, everything is getting better all the time, and by orders of magnitude. The opportunities that young people have right now have never been better. Whether you decide to stick with college or find your ways into the professional world through other means, which are more open than they've ever been before.
Right, like Praxis and all sorts of other opportunities out there. It's amazing.
You can get a college equivalent education by your bootstraps. As long as you have access to the internet and some time on your hands, there's almost nothing you can't achieve some degree of skill at. And capitalizing on other publicly available resources, even achieving mastery at. I wouldn't say college is over. I don't want to go to a doctor who hasn't been to medical school. There are certain things you can't learn without the resources that are available at a university. But there are massive opportunities for people to achieve professional careers without that. Talk to the, what's the organization I'm thinking of?
We've been together almost 27 years, and I haven't been able to read his mind consistently.
In any event, yes, the opportunities are boundless, and everything is getting better.
Yep. Yeah, so do you want any devil's advocate questions?
Sure. Give me a devil's advocate question for my Pollyanna-ish level of optimism.
So actually my bangs are way too long, so that's giving me less optimism than I thought I would have today. So, but other than that, there is the, coronavirus and very interesting ways that our politicians in the United States are handling it. And I'm sure there's a lot of information out there right now, but I think it is something that we need to be watchful of, but not panicking or not going out and stockpiling food like Y2K at this point. What do you think?
I think I don't know. Mm-hmm. And
it's hard to
every
say.
Indication that I've got is that the coronavirus 19, COVID-19, which they need to give a name to because lots of viruses are coronaviruses. Mm-hmm. But the most recent coronavirus is bad news. It's bad news because we get bad news. In 2013, a tsunami came, hit the Indian Ocean, the coastline, and killed over 100,000 people. Life isn't safe. It's not easy. Things come along and kill, again, hundreds of thousands of people. Is the coronavirus going to be a viral tsunami and have that kind of impact? Every indication is it's not going to be 100,000 dead bad, but it's going to be bad. It's going to be real bad. So you're right. That is a bad thing. But again, life has no guarantees and bad things happen. And
well, that's why it's important to have a reality-based philosophy where you're focusing on the facts and you're not going either way. You're not panicking, but you're also not completely, as I think one of the politicians or somebody in the administration said, turn your TV off for 24 hours. It'll go away or something. We'll pray it away.
That'll work.
Yeah, it's that obviously that's the extreme. But if you are trying to find sources that are close to the situation, Robert Garmong comes to mind, who lives in China. His podcasts we recommend very highly.
Look up Robert Garmong on YouTube. Mm-hmm. He's put up a series of videos, and he's on the inside. He's not in Wuhan, but he's in China.
Yep.
And in a way, you're getting a better idea of what's going on by not being in the epicenter.
Yes.
So Garmong, Garmong. In addition, Amesh Adalja is an expert in epidemiology and has provided a very rational voice. He's easy to find on Facebook, and he's been on CNN, been on a lot of newscasts. If you've been following this, you may have already heard him. There are good, balanced voices with substantial information about the coronavirus epidemic, which again is sad. It is unfortunate. It is not a cause for optimism, but it is not new that such things happen.
You know, what I'm optimistic about was just the fact that I think that once people get used to this idea, they will continue to research things, and I think that people are going to be primarily fact-based about this.
Get used to which idea, the virus or this podcast?
Oh, this viral podcast. So
that was smooth.
In terms of what we need to do, obviously we need to wash our hands. We need to make sure everything is sanitary. We need to get used to possibly the idea of quarantining ourselves and not going out and not having long, extended time periods where we don't go to work. That is something that they experienced in China. I think that is just kind of getting into everyone's minds, and I think that everyone's going to be helpful with each other. I think that it's really going to come down to the state and local governments in terms of their organization, particularly. I'm not counting on the federal government to help us out with this. So I think, maybe this is a good time for people who have the expertise to deal with this kind of thing, to reach out to our local and state governments and talk with them. And So anyway, I'm fairly optimistic. So what's next on the docket, Mr. Nasir?
Well, 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir is going to include certain features that will be regulars, and one of them is going to be the podcast of the week, because I'm now producing a podcast, and I'm very interested in podcasts. I listen to podcasts, and it's amazing to me the power and the scope of this medium, how quickly it just popped up 14 years ago, and within the last few years became mainstream. Whole careers and fortunes are made, lives are enhanced, all sorts of personal improvement is being done by podcasts, and just fun and entertainment and whole radio shows, TV shows with video. And so I will be offering my podcast of the week each time. And my podcast of the week this week is Debbie Millman's podcast. Debbie Millman has been podcasting from the very beginning. Her podcast has been running for 14 years.
Nice choice. Yeah.
The show is called Design Matters with Debbie Millman. You can look it up on your podcast app or on YouTube. A particular episode I recommend was a episode from last year with David Lee Roth as the guest, the August 12th episode, 2019.
I remember that one.
Whatever you think of David Lee Roth and Van Halen, there's actually some insights and some wisdom that he offered. One of the things that stood out, and I posted about this on Facebook, you can find it on my wall, he used the expression, which didn't originate with him, but that he's applied, which is be the verb, not the noun. Be the verb. And that was part of the inspiration or fuel for me to leave my IT career, start writing, and start podcasting. Because what they mean by be the verb is do the thing that you see yourself as. There are people who call themselves writers, but they've never written. There are people who call themselves artists, but they've never drawn, they've never painted. There are people, we think of ourselves as speech makers, but we never join Toastmasters and we never give a speech. Be the verb, do the thing. If you want to be an artist, do art. If you've got it in mind to be a writer, start writing. Get pencil, get paper, start writing. It doesn't matter whether you're writing nonsense at first. Nobody has ever given birth to an adult. Nobody was ever a master because they decided to do a thing. You achieve mastery by doing the thing. Life is an art, not a science. The difference between an art and a science is you can learn a science and then you can do that science. You can do things with that science. But with an art, with a skill, you can tell me how to dance, and I can't dance unless I go out there and dance. I can learn everything there is to know about how to hold a paintbrush, but if I don't go out there and do 100 canvases, I ain't going to be an artist. I can call myself a podcaster, but unless I do crappy podcasts like this one, I'm never going to become a master. And I genuinely appreciate those who are coming along for this ride.
Yes, thank you very much. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. So yes, be the verb, not the noun.
Press the bell.
And listen to Design Matters with Debbie Millman.
Yes.
The Post-it note of the week. Folks who attended my last GlowCon talk know I'm a big fan of Post-it notes as inspiration and as reminders. So you should always have a stack of Post-it notes, and you should always have a permanent marker on hand. And your bathroom mirror right now should have a Post-it note on it, reminding you of something that you need to sink in, something that you need to become a standing order for you. And the Post-it note for this week is WWID. What would I do? It's fun to have sort of inspirational, what would person saying, X do?
Yeah, so
yes?
Are you saying, like, I would say to myself, well, what would Amy do? Kind of thing.
Yes.
Oh, very good.
We're fans of Ayn Rand, the writer of The Fountainhead,
yes.
Atlas Shrugged.
Big time.
And creator of a whole philosophy. And one of the takeaways...
We have this here.
Yes. One of the takeaways from the book The Fountainhead, for example, is there's this heroic figure, Howard Rourke, the man of independence and ability, but in this book especially independence. And you may have a different fictional hero that you would think of, but you can ask yourself, well, what would Howard Rourke do in a given situation? I have religious friends and family who say, well, WWJD, what would Jesus do? But one question that's worth asking yourself, especially if you ever find yourself at a roadblock, a creative block, unable to answer a question and you don't have a resource to reach, is ask yourself, well, what would I do? What would I do if I weren't blocked? What would I do if I was myself at my best? What would I be doing if I was doing what really mattered?
It's the same principle that you find when you're giving a friend advice and you think to yourself, man, that was really great advice. Hey, I've got it together.
Why don't I do that?
Why don't I do that? Why can't I approach myself this way?
So what I want you to do is take a Post-it note, and if you don't have a stack of Post-it notes, what's wrong with you? No, I mean, if you don't have a stack of Post-it notes, take a piece of scrap paper and a piece of adhesive tape and write, what would I do? Or you can abbreviate it, put it on your bathroom mirror. Think about that for the next week. Mm-hmm. See if that doesn't give you some insights you might not have gotten.
Yeah, no harm in doing
any
that.
other way.
Oh, and don't forget, Howard Rourke said, love the doing. Love the doing.
Yes.
Yes.
Your takeaway for this episode of 5 Minutes with Robert Nasir, featuring Amy Nasir, is you have relatively little control over whether the world is getting better or worse. This is the optimism episode, but you can't change all of that. You can have as much impact as you can. But you do have enormous control, the control over whether you and your life are getting better. Keep working on you, on your life, on your relationships with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your partners, your patrons, and everybody else who touches your life.
Your pets. Right?
Yes, your pets.
Yes.
Work on your relationship with your pets. Take control of your life.
Yes.
Because that is what you can control. And if you do that, you change your friends, you change your family, you change your business relationships, you even make your dog, cat, or bunny better. And in that way, you do change the world just about as much as anybody can. And the more people who do that right, the better the world gets. And since the world is getting better, people are doing that. And that tells you right there all you need to know about whether people are good or not.
There's so much good going on right now.
You are
second.
Surrounded by virtue. You are surrounded by miracles, not least of which is yourself.
Mm-hmm. And excellent people out there. There's just too much talent, too much benevolence, too much intelligence.
Once we launch the podcast proper, we will be doing the benevolence episode.
Yes.
And we will make the case not just for the benevolent universe premise, but for the essentially good nature of man. Mm-hmm. Not the intrinsic good nature of man, because, free will.
Yes. But we have the faculty of reason.
And
it's
damn,
amazing.
People are good. Everywhere I go.
And that's a choice.
It's crazy.
And it's hard to be good sometimes. Nah. And they do it anyway.
Well, yeah, that's true.
No, it is difficult sometimes to work on yourself. It's okay. You just got to keep plugging.
So your homework, and yes, there will be homework after each episode.
I'm not prepared for this.
Oh, you are prepared for this. Your homework. Your homework is going to be to let us know what you thought of this test podcast. If you actually stuck it out, if you made it through to the end of this thing, let me know what you thought, what we should work on, and especially not so much, this sucks and that sucks, although we'd love to hear that, but what would you like to see from a podcast by Robert Nasir, featuring Amy Nasir? And I would love to hear it. The podcast does have a group that was just created, but for now, probably better to chime in on my YouTube channel or my Facebook wall or my Twitter feed. All of those are /Robert Nasir. YouTube /Robert Nasir, Facebook.com/Robert Nasir, Twitter.com/Robert Nasir. And now you know how to pronounce Nasir.
Nasir. Nasir.
She says it the same way, so that's good for both of us. You get a twofer there.
There's probably about 20 people in the entire world who pronounce this name that way.
There's probably 20 people who say it right.
Yes.
So thank you so much for chiming in.
Yes.
And you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Just I'm very grateful to be a human being, to have a life in a semi-free nation even, and it's wonderful
people.
with you.
Is that amazing or what?
And it's
all right.
It's amazing.
There's probably some real haters out there, so if there are any, screw you. But the rest of
no.
I love you people.
Everyone's on their own journey. Everybody gets to have a say, and hope you get better if you're a hater.
By the time we're done with you, you won't be. All right. Thanks for listening. Love you all. Bye.
All right.